So we've learned a lot about jQuery being able to add classes, remove classes, to toggle class, to add a class by an event, whether the event be click or double click or something like that. So now we're going to come back into our demo project, our Cooking 101 website, and we're going to apply some of what we've learned to this website. Now, a couple things that we're going to do is we're going to use the click events on the different sections. So it'll be similar sections to what we worked with in the past. And we're going to use the toggle class to toggle the animations from on to off. We're also then going to try something different besides click. We're going to go in and we're going to use a mouse enter events, and that's basically almost like a hover event. When a mouse gets entered, it's then going to fire that code. So let's go into here, and just a reminder, we have the Cooking 101 banner here. If we scroll down, those are the 4 sections that we've been working with, and what we're going to do is we're going to apply that, so as soon as I click on it, the animation will run right away. So let's go into our code here. And so I'm going to first of all make sure that we have the animation zoom in. We're going to remove that because we're going to toggle that class. So let's come in here and remove animated zoom in from all of those sections. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, and Section 4. All right. I'm going to hit save there. That looks great. Let's go back into, or let's go into the JavaScript file, interaction.js. And we're going to add a couple different jQuery events. You can do this with plain vanilla JavaScript if you want to, but I'm going to do it based on jQuery. So I'm first of all going to add a comment here. This is going to be section 1, and then I'm going to use the jQuery selector to select the object on the stage, which is going to be section 1. That's my class. And then I'm going to do an on function, and then I'm going to pass in a couple different parameters, which is the first one is going to be what type of events, and that's going to be a click. And then we're going to run a function after that. So it has to be open close parentheses and then open close curly brackets and bring that down a line. We're going to do that for section 2, 3, and 4. So I can just copy this. Let me copy the comment as well. So I'm going to copy that, come down 2, 3, and then 4. So let's come in here and change that to 2, 2, come and change that to 3, change that to 3, and then change that to 4. All right, so we now have all of our click events ready to go. So we're going to use the toggle class in each of these to toggle the classes of animated and zoom in. It's all going to be the same thing. And so I'm going to say section 3. Let's use the jQuery selector to talk to section 3. And then we're going to say toggle class, open close parentheses, and then we're going to pass in the parameters there, which the 2 parameters are the classes, so space, or I guess this is 1 parameter with the class, 2 classes itself. And so I'm going to say zoom in, and that with a semicolon, and I'm going to copy that, and actually this is section 1, so let's change that to section 1. I'll paste that to section 2, change that to 2, that one is already 3, we're good there, and then change that to 4. All right, so now let's go in, and we're in our project here, so I'm going to hit refresh. And you'll notice nothing happens to these different sections because I removed the animation until something is clicked on. But as soon as I click on it, you'll notice that the animation will run. But I have to click on it a couple times for the animation to run again. Again, we'll talk about in future sections how to remove the class as soon as the animation is done. But we have to be listening for the class to be done before we can do that. So it takes a little bit more setup to do that. So one more thing that I wanted to do is let's talk to the phone itself. And what I want to do, as soon as I hover over this, I want the phone to actually animate. I don't want the animation to happen until I've actually hovered over. I've used the mouse enter to be able to hover that. So let's go into the code and let's add on another event, and this is going to be for the phone. So let's go ahead and come into the index.html file and let's find our phone. You can see right here, I need to add a class of phone here. So I'm going to say right after img fluid, I'm going to say this is going to be phone. We're going to talk to this specific phone here. Coming back in here, let's go ahead and build out our events listener. So we're going to say open close parentheses, open close quotes. Make sure that we have a dot for phone, and then say on, open close parentheses there. And instead of click, we're actually going to say mouse enter. Now that won't work on mobile, so you may not want to use that, but for just testing out here, that will work just fine. There's also specific touch events if you wanted to create one That's if you want something to happen on a touch event different than a mouse enter event. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to select the phone again. So .phone, and we're going to say toggle class, and we're going to add on an animation of animated, and then bounce in right. All right, so let's save that, go back into the browser, hit refresh, and you'll notice as soon as I hover over it, it will bounce over again. The image itself, I think, is kind of out a little bit more, which is why it's triggering a little earlier before I mouse over it. But that's how you go in, and it's just a different way. Instead of click, you can do it mouse over, you can do it double click, you can do it through a touch event, and you can cause these animations to happen. So we've been able to go in and apply some of what we've learned in this section to our demo project, and it's looking great. So now we're ready to move on to the next section, which is being able to trigger code after an animation completes. In this section, we learned about jQuery selector basics, being able to use jQuery to select objects on the stage, as well as how to use jQuery to add classes and have a little bit more control when we add those classes as well, and then remove those classes when needed. When we did not need the animation anymore, we could remove the class, and then even toggle the class to be able to say, okay, if it's on, take it off. If it's off, take it, put it back on. So we've been able to use all those different classes inside of this section. And then we talked about jQuery events, being able to trigger the code when we want it to trigger, when it's clicked, when it's double clicked, when a mouse is hovered, and different things like that. So we really covered a lot of ground here. jQuery, being able to add class, remove class, toggle classes, and different events. There's a lot more that you can dive into jQuery. If you want to be able to control more of how things happen, then you might want to look into jQuery or might want to dive a little bit deeper into JavaScript. But in the next section, we're going to be talking about how we can trigger code when an animation ends.